Hello and welcome to the Studies in Magic. Today we're going to be talking about the first time you perform a new routine. Now, this is one of the hardest things to do. It's one of the most exciting things to do when you are working on a routine, to be performing it in front of people, to be able to sharing that work, but it's also nerve-wracking because there's so many variables and there's so many things that you only find out when you first start performing it. So I just wanted to discuss some of those things and how we do it. So when you are at home and you're first practicing a routine, it's sort of theoretical. You either are reading it in a book, or maybe it's a routine you came up with by yourself, or maybe a variation of routine that you're familiar with. And you're sitting at home, and the way you usually do it is you sit at home with a mirror and you work it out. You work out the script, you work out the angles, you work out what you think is the timing. And then you go in front of people, and very quickly you find out that everything that you planned is totally irrelevant. And it reminds me of one of those quotes from Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson, who famously says that everyone has a plan. Everybody goes into a fight with a plan, and they have a plan until they get punched in the face. That first punch wakes you up, and you sort of realize, okay, this is a little different. This is a little different than I thought it would be. This is real, this hurts. And that's how it is when you're performing a new piece of magic for the first time. Nothing is what you thought it would be. Without getting into too many specifics, let's say a very basic routine, and you only have a few techniques in that routine. Let's say you need to palm a card in that routine at a certain moment. And you're in your room and you're like, okay, this is the routine, this is where I palm it, this is where I make that comment, and then this is where I go into the pocket with that palm card to later reveal that, that card magically went into the pocket or whatever, something like that. When you're working on it in your room, it's so easy because there's no pressure. When you're working in that theoretical workspace, that practice space, there's no pressure, there's nobody looking at you, there's no eyes on you, there's no gaze. When you are performing for people in real life, all of a sudden there's tension, there is pressure, people are looking, and that's one of the things that is most difficult about figuring out new pieces of magic is when that tension pops up. How do you deal with it? What do you do? How do you remove that tension? How do you work through that tension? Let's say you had practiced that routine, you thought it was super easy. I'm just going to palm the card at this point, go into my pocket. Bob's your uncle. You then are in front of people, and okay, you're doing the routine. All right, I'm holding the deck, I'm about to palm the card. Wait a second, it's really tense over here. I don't know, I'm feeling the heat. Should I palm, should I not palm? You hesitate, there's even more tension. Now people are looking, what is he doing? Now your mind is going, overactive. Oh my gosh, I can't palm right now. There's too much heat, there's too much pressure, there's too much tension. This is what happens when you're working out new routines, because theoretically, when you're working on stuff, you can work out the structure, you can work out the physical structure, that is to say the moves and the words that are coming out of your mouth. That's part of that physical structure, something that you design and plan and organize. And then once you start performing, there's another part of that structure that's beyond the physical structure. That's sort of like this energy. What is the energy in the room communicating? What is the energy you're giving out? What is the energy you're receiving back? And you have all these different points. They don't really have names. Let's call them tension points. Points where there's tension and attention at different things, different moments. How do you handle that? So that's one of the main things that's extremely difficult when you are performing a new piece of magic for the first time. And it's one of those things that we as magicians don't really think about when we are practicing in our room, but then bam, once you're in person, you find out, okay, there's all these things that I didn't consider. My whole structure is crumbling, my whole structure is falling apart. And I would not say that there is a magic solution to this. For me personally, there's only so much that I can work out in a room by myself. I can work out a routine, but for somebody like me, who so much of my magic, not all of it, some of my magic is very theatrical, very highly scripted with music, stuff like that. It's more of a theater piece, but most of my magic is very conversational, very interactive. It almost feels like a talk show. It almost feels like a talk show where it's like I have a guest and we're having fun. And I'm not performing for them. It's just all these things are happening, magic is happening. I'm the one performing the magic, but I'm not performing to them. I'm with them. It's just a style thing. And that's just sort of how my style developed for a lot of the pieces of magic that I do. That isn't to say all my magic is like that, but I do recognize that. So for me, there's only so much work that I can do in a room by myself. And then I get it out in front of an audience, and that's when I really go to work, because that's when I get all this feedback, and I just automatically process, okay, this is what's going on, this is the energy, this is what I'm feeling, this is what they're feeling, and then it just all sort of makes sense in my mind, or comes together in my mind in some way like that. So for me, that is my process. That is my process, just going through it, not really knowing what I'm doing. I mean, I know what I'm doing, but not really knowing what's going to come from it, and then just dealing with it, adapting in that moment, and then going home and also after the show, after the performance, taking notes and really looking at things critically, and asking myself and being honest with myself, what went well, what didn't go well, what could go better, maybe, and just working based on those experiences. And I would say for everybody, even if you want to present magic to the audience, you're more of a presenter. There are certain people in magic who are obviously more presenters, and they do not have a lot of interaction in their show. They don't, you look at a guy like David Copperfield, very tightly scripted show. Boom, line, 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 line. It seems interactive at some moments, but it's really not. It's just boom. It's pretty much straightforward. He's presenting a show to you. He's presenting a show. And I was surprised to find out David Copperfield had a similar way of figuring things out. But it's one of those things, even if you're one of those people who script things out like a David Copperfield or like countless other magicians, you do come to a point where that work that you have done in your room, that you've done at your computer, writing your script, that you've done in front of your mirror, practicing the moves, practicing the routine over and over again, you get to a point where that progress plateaus. And then, doesn't matter, maybe the routine has no interaction. Maybe you're just saying a few lines and you're doing, you're presenting a piece of magic to the audience. There's no interaction, you're just telling a story and boom, doing it. Or it could even be with like a silent piece, something like that. But there comes a point where you do have to do it in front of people, and when you do it in front of people, you will get that feedback. And the question is there a way to make this easier, to avoid some of these struggles when you are working on magic? Is there some way to avoid these struggles of just not knowing how to get past those rough points in the routine? And the truth is that you just have to go through it. Doesn't matter how difficult it is at first, doesn't matter how bad the routine is, you just have to do it, and you do it. It's like anything else. You just work through it, and You know that at the beginning that it's not what you want it to be, but that's one of the most important things. Doing something and then looking at it and knowing that it's not what you want it to be. If you can go into something and be able to identify that what you're doing is not what you want to be doing and that you want it to be better, then that's a great thing, because you know that there's room for improvement. The next step then is to work through those improvements. Identify the points that where you can improve, those areas that you can improve, and then work step by step to improving the routine. All of this stuff takes time, it takes energy, there's no shortcut around it. One of my friends, Dirk Delgadio, has a little line that he uses, and I think it's great. He just, I think it goes something like more experience. He says more mistakes faster. The idea behind that obviously is, you don't want to make more mistakes over and over again, have massive failure faster. But you almost do, because through those experiences, if you are smart, if you have a brain that is functioning and you're able to identify why things are going wrong, those are going to help you get better. So the more you fail, the more mistakes that you make, the better you're going to get. And I just want to say, I have seen, I won't name anyone, but I've seen magicians who have been performing for a very long time. They have an awful lot of stage time. They perform regularly, full shows, sets, everything, you name it. They're busy working, and they haven't got any better. So it's not just a thing of grinding it out and then doing, if you are repeatedly doing stuff the wrong way, that isn't going to automatically make you better. It's just going to make you better at doing it incorrectly, because you're going to have so much experience doing it incorrectly that you're going to pick up bad habits, and it's going to be hard to rewire and retrain you to do it in a better way. And once your brain is like primed to do stuff incorrectly, it's very hard to retrain yourself. So I would say always, whatever you are doing, keep notes. One of my favorite magicians, Babel, he does these shows in the streets of Paris. Every single show that he does after the show, he's doing like busking street magic. And after each one of his shows, after the night of working, he will sit in a cafe and he will write out all the routines he did, all the tricks he did, maybe the little variations, maybe things that went wrong. He'll literally have a bunch of notes. Maybe a funny line came up, like a joke, something like that. He'll make these extensive notes and then study it and then try to improve. I would highly recommend that for people who do want to improve, because as I said, if you're just doing stuff poorly, you're not going to get better at it. Everybody knows that guy who's been doing magic for 30, 40, 50 years and does the same 2-3 tricks. He does them horribly and nobody wants to watch them. You don't want to be that person. You want your magic to be as best as it can be, and you want it to always be getting better. That should be your goal. I don't think anything's ever finished. If things were never finished for a guy like Tommy Wonder, it shouldn't be finished for a person like me or you or anyone. Even David Copperfield is constantly trying to improve every single piece. And you'll consistently find that with the best magicians, they always want to get better. There's nobody who's ever just like happy and, yeah, okay, I got it, let's just move on to the next piece. No, people who are good, people who take this stuff seriously want to get better always. And why wouldn't they want to? I mean, why wouldn't they? So definitely take notes like Babel, study them. Another thing that you can do, which is more difficult logistically, but if you can do it, you should do it, is take video of every single show. That's another thing that I found out from various magicians, including guys like David Copperfield. Did you know, David Copperfield does, I don't know how many shows a year, probably around 500, something like that, 500 shows a year. maybe more than 5. But David Copperfield does many more shows a year than I do, and more than anybody. And it doesn't matter how many shows he does. For what I've heard is David Copperfield, after every single show, will sit down and watch a video of the entire show. He'll sit down and watch the show, and he'll look at it, and this is one of those things where it's like you have to see that as a level of dedication. And I just want to say, there's a lot of people who don't like seeing themselves on video. There's a lot of people who don't like hearing themselves on video. They don't want to hear their own voice. They don't want to see themselves. Like they don't want to do it. They don't want to deal with it because they're attached to their ego. They have this vision of themselves that's like this first person experience, and they don't want that to be broken. They don't want to see themselves like other people see them. And the video doesn't lie. And that's one of the great things about video, by the way, is that it doesn't lie. Video is very honest in a lot of ways. So when you do videotape yourself, you are getting a very good picture of what that experience is like for everybody who's watching you. So I would highly, highly recommend that you begin to videotape yourself if you can. Every single show, watch it, take notes, always be thinking about how to improve. And when you are doing routines, because I just want to go back, because this whole thing is about, it's supposed to be about performing routines for the first time. When you are performing routines for the first time, you have to do it knowing that it's not going to be as good as it can be. But that's no excuse for it to stay at that point. You know what I'm saying? From that very first performance, you need to figure out how to make it better and consistently work on it. And maybe it's the script, maybe you're finding out different things about the tension. We're talking about a lot of tension. This is one of those variables that only comes up when you start performing it in front of people. Otherwise, you're just working. You're working in a simulation. You're not even working a simulation. You're just working alone. And we know that magic is not alone. It's not it's something that you don't work on alone. You can't realistically become good at it alone. You can become good at many things sitting by yourself. You can be good. You can become great at technique. You can become great at writing. You can become great at many other things. But actually performing is something that requires you to perform. And there's just something about it. And there's some people who have more of a natural talent when they are performing new material or just performing in general. There's people who have natural talent, natural charisma, all these things working for them. And there's other people who don't have that as much natural talent. So there's people who are going to have it easier off the bat. There's people who are going to have it harder off the bat. The main point, doesn't really matter where it is you're starting. Nothing matters where you're starting. Just because you're naturally talented, you could become very lazy and then not progress to a level where you're supposed to be, just because you are happy at that low level of competence that you've achieved. And just because you start out with no talent doesn't mean that you can't work on it and improve. Everything can be improved on. Everything can be learned. So don't don't get caught up into where it is that you are starting. Focus on the ending. What is the experience? What is that end experience that you want for people? What is that feeling? Even me. So I was looking at a few routines that I was doing recently, just all over the place. People send me video and stuff. And one of the things that I've identified, and there's a bunch of little things that I've identified, but one of them is like speed, which is like when I'm, even when I'm by myself, I perform slower than I would like to. I would like to be faster. I would like things to be faster paced, but then I don't want things to be too fast paced because it's not really my style. I'm just generally slow. I'm slow in talking. I'm slow in moving. it's more of a character thing. I mean, I can be fast, but I'm generally slow. So it's like, okay, how do we speed it up? How do we, well, not necessarily how do we speed it up, but how do we take full control of that speed? Because I'm a very adaptive person. So it's like, for me, my personal style is I'm always like looking at what the audience is giving me, and then operating, maneuvering in that environment, working my way through what I'm given, which has a lot of benefits, but also has shortcomings. So it's understanding all these things that affect a performance. We talked about the environment, we talked about feeling out of room in previous videos. So these are all things that contribute, obviously, to the overall experience. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about how to move forward intelligently. So important, so overlooked, and I want to give words of encouragement for people who are beginning new routines, because I do know how hard it is. I know how hard it is. So it's, I want to give you guys a few words of encouragement, give you some advice. I hope this helps you a little bit. So just to reiterate, do it as much as you can, because that experience will help you, but that experience will show you your weak points, and then it's up to you to identify and work on that. Record, take notes, do everything that you can to keep track of your progress, have a vision for what you want it to be, and then boom, 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 step by step, work to that vision of that, where you want that routine to be. We all have that image, that spirit of every single routine that we feel that's what the magic should be like. That's what this should be like. We know what that feeling is. It's our job through our work. That's where the work comes in, to turn that that inner sensation that we have of what it should be into something that our audiences can experience it. So hopefully this wasn't too much, and this provided some clarity. Those are my thoughts on performing new pieces for the first time. There's a lot of different variables, but I'll leave it at that. If you guys have any questions or comments, please let me know. If you guys like this and want to see other videos, obviously subscribe to our YouTube channel and our other social media. All the links, as usual, are right down below. We also have different things available, different ways for you to get involved. All the information is down below, so just click and you will find everything that you need to know. Thank you for watching, and please let me know in the comments or through email, however you want to, your thoughts on performing new pieces of magic for the first time. And also, if you want any advice or feedback, any specific questions, please let me know, and I will do my best to share my thoughts and hopefully point you in the right direction. Thank you so much for watching and supporting, and have a great day.